What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. Okay, let's dive into some other things from around the National Football League. I was watching so much football. I didn't do anything on Saturday besides go to the gym in the morning, eat, and watch football literally all day. And I realized, you know what? I should probably take some notes. I'm not breaking down these games, but things that I see that I want to talk about, because I had watched Cam Ward the night before, and I was like, you know what? Let's talk about the two rookie quarterbacks that were drafted really high. Obviously, we talk a ton about Shedeur. Dylan Gabriel went viral for a comment that he was talking about the media. It was clear he was talking about the media, and he's right. We're in the entertainment business. We're not in the win football games business. That's the job that Kevin Stefanski's in, that Dylan Gabriel's in. This is the entertainment business. And what he said was not wrong. But obviously they tried to make it about Shedeur. It had nothing to do with Shedeur Sanders. I was watching that game as he said it. And listen, I'm not the biggest Dylan Gabriel guy as a player, but from a character standpoint, that's not really his MO. Cam Ward, I want to say this. I always feel bad. Like last year, the Bengals, like they didn't make the playoffs. Why? Their defense wasn't very good. Their owner had been cheap in recent, I would say, over the last couple of years when it came to investing on that side of the ball. Obviously, you know, their head coach is one of the lower paid guys in the league. Like, it's kind of what you get sometimes. Like that, if I'm a fan, I'm like, well, we have this great quarterback, we have these great weapons, but we are the Bengals and Mike Brown owns our team, so we're going to have seasons like that. I don't feel any sympathy. The Alabama Crimson Tide went 9-4. Like, you don't get any sympathy points for me. Shit happens. Like, welcome to the real world. But when your quarterback is just unwatchable and you can't even function as a football team in college, like last year with Oklahoma, or in the pros, like last year with the New York Giants or the Tennessee Titans, like, I do feel bad for you a little bit. I thought the Titans actually early in the season were kind of competitive, but Will Levis was the worst player in the NFL at his position. Honestly, it might not have even been close. And then everything that happened with the Giants, with the Daniel Jones saga and coming back for injury, how anemic their passing game was. I mean, they cut him by the end of the season. It was an embarrassment. Like, it was really, really rough to watch. And when you draft a quarterback, the Titans, you drafted the guy number 1 overall. So the hope, and listen, I don't think there's anything more powerful than hope in life, right? The hope of a new relationship, the hope of a new job, the hope of a new quarterback. It is a powerful, powerful emotion that drives human beings forward. And when you have the hope of a quarterback, a young quarterback, you'd be like, Middlekauff, it's only preseason. I totally understand that. We saw the same thing with Shedeur a week ago. Like, that's a powerful thing when you see a young player making plays. Now, Cam Ward is very, very physically gifted. I think he's going to be pretty good. I actually think the Titans could be a little bit of a sleeper. Not maybe to make the playoffs, but just relative to what they were last year, the number 1 overall team, the drafting number 1 overall, to what they could be this year. Wouldn't shock me if they won 7 or 8 games if Cam Ward's really good. But the Giants are like one of the marquee franchises, in theory, in all of professional sports. They're the biggest market in America. They're this franchise that over the last, 20 years have won a couple Super Bowls. They've taken out Belichick and Brady. They've had just some historic moments over the course of their franchise with Parcells and LT and Eli Manning. But let's face it, the last, decade has been pretty rough. And anytime you take a guy, I would say late first round, early second round, it's kind of that sweet spot where it's like, is this guy any good? Like, if you take a guy, I would say in the top 10, 15-ish, like that 12, 13 is right that sweet spot. You're expected to be a star. You're expected to be a Pro Bowl level guy. Fair or not. And obviously it doesn't turn out that way. But when I draft you like 6 overall, my expectations for you are really, really high. And that's what happened with Daniel Jones. And I remember thinking at the time, like most people, like, what are they doing? I had a couple buddies who are really successful in the NFL. Like, John, I think he can be the next Alex Smith. Well, part of Alex Smith's success is he got Jim Harbaugh and he got Andy Reid. I mean, his career was headed down a pretty ugly path till those guys showed up. Daniel Jones was kind of thrown in the fire. Clearly, it just hasn't gone well. And we'll find out, I would imagine, over the next couple days if he's the starter with the Colts and can resurrect his career. And he might have to do that, right? But Jaxson Dart was in that spot like, Did they overdraft him? Did they get him like, did they get a steal here? No one really knows. And I'm basing, like, I'm not breaking down Ole Miss film. I would say exposure to him at the highest level was that Florida game, which is hard for me to ever forget. And then you turn on these last couple weeks, he's 26-35. He's thrown a couple touchdowns. He's run for a touchdown. But listen, it's not about the stats. To me, it's always about the eye test. I'll never forget watching Mitch Trubisky earlier in his career. It's like he's got no touch. And if you have no touch in the NFL, you have no fucking chance. Excuse my language, little kids. None. If you can't layer the ball over a linebacker, under a safety, you cannot function as a quarterback in the NFL. And you know me, I have a soft spot for the physical traits. I do think that matters over the course of time, right? Tom Brady had a big time arm. Why? Why does that matter? Because he could handle cold weather. And we see some guys with weaker arms struggle in cold weather a little bit. I think that's a big line of delineation from Mahomes, who obviously is a better player than Alex Smith, but like his arm strength is so much more superior. They immediately had success in the playoffs where they couldn't with Alex. It has limitations. And people are like, how good is Jaxson Dart's physical traits? We heard the same thing last year with Bo Nix. Well, I'm watching Sean Payton talk right now. He's like, his physical traits are awesome. He has a plus arm. He moves well. And I think people crush you sometimes in your college offense because they're like, well, he's just throwing bubble screens. Well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of what a lot of these colleges call. I think it was easier to judge that 20 years ago, kind of the rinky dink. I mean, that's what it was considered by NFL people, spread offenses, definitely Mike Leach, but what it's really become, well, now a lot of NFL teams, run, I would say, iterations of those plays. I'm watching Jaxson Dart and I go, listen, I don't think he has Josh Allen's arm, but he definitely has a strong arm. But watching him layer throws, right? Cam Ward, same thing. That ability, like, that's going to translate. Obviously, then the intangibles, your work ethic. We saw Cam Ward a couple weeks ago talk about why he shows up so early. He's like, my dad had a job he hated, and he showed up early. So if I have a job I like, which also pays a premium, and I can't show up early, I might as well just quit now. And he's right. And so to me, if you get the work ethic, if you get the intangibles, they have the physical traits that translate. And the thing you never really know at the highest level until you start playing is the toughness element. When you start getting hit, like, how do you react? Because you're going to get hit. I saw this Abdul Carter clip that went viral of him getting absolutely leveled on a chip block by a tight end, and then I think the offensive tackle took him out. It's like everyone's making fun of him. It's like, guys, this is the NFL. Like, unless you are like Trent Williams, I mean, I bet Aaron Donald got blocked and thrown to the ground at points in times, like on a given snap. It happened to probably J.J. Watt or Lane Johnson. Like, hell, Trent's probably got smoked. It's the highest level of competition, of the best athletes, especially for a young guy. If they don't every once in a while get absolutely worked, and if you are a defensive or offensive lineman, it's going to be physical. Like, welcome to football. Welcome to the National Football League. But if I'm a Giants fan, I don't just have hope right now. Like, I'm pretty fired up. I'm pretty excited for what I've seen of the young quarterback. And here's the problem. We saw it last year with Russell Wilson. Now, it was different because Russell was banged up and they went with Fields and then they transitioned. Clearly, Brian Daboll's like, we're going with Russell to start. Now, their schedule is really, really difficult. But this is this thing with Flacco. This is, Cam Ward starting right off the bat. But whenever you have a highly publicized young quarterback, whether it's a first-round pick or a third or like Shador, a fifth-round pick, no one wants to watch the old veteran guy. You have, like, Russell Wilson has no equity with the fans. Honestly, I would imagine most fans view Russell Wilson like a washed-up has-been. And they're not totally wrong. I mean, he's getting passed around now. He's a $8 to $10 million bridge quarterback. And we draft this guy really high, and if you're Brian Daboll, it's like, well, you look at the schedule, I think everyone is somewhat realistic. Probably not winning 10 games. Like, best case scenario, if we had a great season, we won 8 or 9, I should be in the mix for Coach of the Year again. But how do I save my job? And what do I do? Because part of saving your job, if you're not going to make the playoffs, is that hope thing has to, like, oh, this guy is connected to the quarterback loves him, and he's got to show promise. So when you look at the schedule, it's clear he's not going to start right away. I mean, the beginning of their schedule is brutal. But I would say by mid to late October, if they're not winning many games by Russell Wilson, no one's going to want to hear he's not quite ready yet, because coaches love saying that. The coaches loves you don't see what we see in practice. I got news for you guys. No one gives a fuck. The owner doesn't really care, and the fans definitely don't care. And a lot of times, the front office doesn't care. It's like, we get it. You know all these plays on a whiteboard, and your quarterback only knows 80% of them. Now, if they clearly don't know what they're doing, a lot like Anthony Richardson in that first preseason game, when he doesn't even know, the protections relative to the pressures, and just gets himself cold clocked, I totally get it. But like, I think people can live with that as a rookie. They can't live with that as a third year guy. But like Jaxson Dart, there's going to be a learning process. Cool with it. But like that physical talent, that ability, that's why once upon a time Russell started. Remember? It's like, well, he's not quite ready. It's like, no one cares. And I'll give Pete credit. And this is why Pete, like, obviously what he did at USC made him a Hall of Famer at the college level. But then him choosing Russell Wilson, as a rookie, like, changed the course of his career, made him a first ballot football Hall of Famer, college and pro, right? And sometimes you got to have balls. And that's the thing with Brian Daboll. This guy, this kind of like Belichickian, worked for Saban, kind of tough guy, really became a star with Josh Allen. Like, sometimes you just got to put your nuts on the table. So we'll see how long he's willing to just ride it out with Russell Wilson, because I just know football fans, and I lived in the Northeast. I was part of that division. They are not going to have a long a lot of patience when it comes to Russell Wilson. The rivalries, the marching bands, the upsets. Saturdays just got way more fun. College football is back, baby. Think you know the game? Put your college football knowledge to the test with DraftKings Sportsbook and turn your picks into big payouts. From live betting during the rivalry week odds boosts and so much more, DraftKings Sportsbook has everything you need to stay in the action from the kickoff to the final whistle. Here's the thing. We got a top 25 matchup happening this week in Ireland. Iowa State taking on K-State. I've been listening to a lot of people. My guy Josh Pate, Iowa State, a little bit of a sleeper this year. You can get them right now. Odds are subject to change. Kind of like Iowa State +3 this week. Across the pond, Iowa State +3. I think I'm going to hammer it. So here's something special for first-timers. New customers, bet just $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code JOHN. That's code JOHN for new customers. Get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. In partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. I watched a lot of NFC West football. The Niners, the Rams, the Cardinals. They're all, and really Seattle. Four things stand out to me about all four teams. One, the 49ers, I don't know how this is possible. Yesterday, when they were playing the Raiders, it felt like every other snap, they lost a player. They've already lost, it felt like 40 guys in practice. This happened to them early on in the Kyle Shanahan tenure. A couple years ago, they did not have this happen, and they made the Super Bowl. Last year, they were near the top with injuries, and right now, it's not quite quantified because the rosters are so fluid with 90 guys. But they got to be near the top, if not leading the league in injuries. I don't know how this happens. They got Stanford Medical right down the street. They're just losing player after player after player. Their starting guard, who's actually a really good player they drafted last year in the third round, got hurt on a fucking field goal. So I don't know what's in the water right now in Santa Clara, what's happening in the training room, but guys are dropping like flies. But that was not their biggest issue. The reality is most NFL teams are going to play in a ton of games, or a ton of close games, right? Kansas City Chiefs, who are in the middle of a dynasty, played in like 14 close games, and they just happen to win them all. Playing in close games is part of the NFL, good or bad. The majority, I think it's like well over 80% of games, this is not college football, are one-score games in the fourth quarter, right? As a wise man once told me when I worked in the NFL, that team could be winless. They got a lot of guys that live in big-ass homes that drive nice-ass cars. So it's like they pay a lot of money for their team as well. And the 49ers field goal situation or kicking situation when it came to field goals was an abomination. And they used a third-round pick on Jake Moody, who Jim Harbaugh, who I just saw got a 10-year show cause. Like, how's the NCAA still operating? Like, who's listening to them? How do they still exist? I don't, and I'm not trying to act like Jim and Connor Stallions are innocent on this one. I don't know. Honestly, I don't really care. I really don't. But how do we still go to the NCAA? And listen, at Michigan, Sharon Moore gets 2 games suspension this year, gets 1 next year, but it's 2 games this year, game 3 and 4, because they're playing Oklahoma week 2. It's just, what are we doing? At least in the NFL, whether you agree or disagree, It's like Roger, who works for the owners, they got the CBA. Like, it's kind of black and white what happened. Now, we can argue over certain suspensions. I saw that he was going to give Rashee Rice like a 10-game suspension, and who knows. Ultimately, my point is, if you're going to take a kicker in the third round, I don't mind doing that. If your team's really good, he just better be a star. And when you look at kickers throughout history, but definitely in like the last 25 years, a lot of guys, either are undrafted or late draft picks, have success for their second team. Pretty sure that Justin Tucker was an undrafted free agent. So you typically don't have to draft, obviously, Sebastian Janikowski, guys very high, because it's one of those positions where it's like you can just find guys who can go on to have a lot of success for you. And they drafted him, and it's been kind of a debacle. Last year was pretty embarrassing. I mean, bad enough where they had a kicking competition. And then I'm watching him against the Raiders. He misses a long field goal. He almost misses what essentially was an extra point. It's like, I think this guy's going to get cut after this game. And then he bangs a long field goal and hits a game-winning 59-yard field goal. And Kyle Shanahan said something, which I give him credit. At least he admits this. Like, I don't even talk to kickers. I just tell them make kicks. Kyle Shanahan despises special teams, which I've said all along, most people do not care. Even special teams coaches, a little quirky, a little different. But like when you're the head coach, you do have to put some emphasis there. And the 49ers simply do not. And they might get lucky here that Jake Moody just maybe resurrected his career because they treated him. I mean, they might as well have just carried him off the field, their reaction, because everyone knew it. That if this guy had missed a couple of the long field goals, especially the game winner, it would have been like they're just they're gonna have to cut him. And now, and whether this is fair or not, like sometimes you can hit 5 balls out of bounds and then finally stripe one down the middle, and that might be the case here. But this might, if he goes on to have a successful career for the 49ers, might have been the turning point. We've been talking about this for a while. We've been hammering this home. Something is weird with the Rams, right? And in fairness to them, like they might not even know. They're like, hey, he's got something with a disc. We're hoping this epidural. We're hoping that, but no one knows. This is not an injury where it's like, he rolled his ankle. He'll be back in 2 weeks, right? He sprained his knee. He'll be out this long a time. You don't really know with a back. And then sometimes like he's ready to go, and then you throw him out there, and all of a sudden he can't get out of bed the next day. But like a week ago, he was supposed to throw on Saturday. The Rams play a game, and he wasn't going to play in the game, but he was going to throw his own regiment. Everyone's asking, the Rams, McVay, which is cool, lets assistant coaches kind of operate during the preseason like a lot of head coaches do. I know that Kevin O'Connell does this. A lot of play callers will let other guys, call plays during the preseason. Some guys even let them run it. Like I think Aubrey Pleasant, it was the head coach yesterday. I think McVay did this last year as well. But he's like, I'm not talking about Stafford. You got to, McVay will talk about that on Monday. And then all the reporters are going to the Rams, like, any comment on Matt Stafford? Did he throw? And they're like, no comment. So it's like, listen, you made a story, which a little out of your control. And I don't even believe it's like nefarious that Stafford this offseason knew that this was coming. Maybe he did, and if he did, that's pretty good business because this will be the last contract he ever gets. And they just have a problem on their hands. He can say whatever he wants, and he can hype up Jimmy Garoppolo. If Jimmy Garoppolo is their quarterback, they have no chance to make the playoffs. I think we all acknowledge that. I mean, they were winning 10 games with Matt Stafford, so this is not like the Eagles, where you could probably piecemeal a quarterback situation to 10 wins because your talent's good enough. But I would imagine, and listen, I like Peter Schrager, and he's McVay's guy. He's like, they're not freaking out. Like, bullshit. They got to be losing some sleep over this. The Cardinals. You know what's funny is like a couple days ago, I was just randomly thinking about Jacoby Brissett. I'm like, I wonder whatever happened to him. Just a couple years ago, he's getting opportunities to be a starter in multiple places, and now he's just out of the league. And then I flip on the game, and it's Cardinals Broncos, and all of a sudden Jacoby Brissett runs in. I'm like, oh yeah, awesome. I don't want to screw up the GM's name, Ossie Mottenfort. I totally just butchered his name. But he was a former New England guy. He brings Jacoby. He knows Jacoby. And then it kind of hit me. It's like, well, clearly Jacoby, who's super high character, mature, just salt of the earth human being. Type guy that any team, especially if you have a young quarterback or a mature quarterback, would like in the quarterback room. And I was like, okay, I get the maturity. And then you watch him play and you realize his skill set and Kyler Murray's skill set couldn't be any more opposite. Like they are on the polar opposite end of the spectrum. And typically, I think ideally you want a quarterback with somewhat of the similarities to your starting quarterback. So if they get injured, which a guy like Kyler Murray has proven like he can get banged up, that there are some parallels with the play calling, with the offense. And so it's not some crazy, like, remember a couple years ago, it was like Anthony Richardson to Gardner Minshew. And I remember Ballard said one off season, he's like, what Shane Steichen did with that offense was pretty remarkable because they were completely opposite players. And I also understand sometimes it's like the best you can get. But like, let's face it, they brought in Jacoby Brissett, even though I think Kyler Murray has matured from the guy that everyone was making fun of for the Call of Duty. Clearly, they see a benefit there of having him around Jacoby. I just know this: if he gets injured, there is a dramatic difference of the guy that comes in. I just think that there's got to be a balance, and I don't love that if I'm the Cardinals, like from a coaching standpoint or even a player standpoint, if we have to change dramatically the scheme, because what Kyler's going to do, I mean, Jacoby can't move. I mean, he's one of the worst athletes at his position by far in the NFL. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Now, the 49ers play Seattle week 1. And I'm not trying to overreact to a preseason game. Andy Reid has as physical of a training camp as any coach in the NFL. I bet their guys in the middle of August, their legs are dead. So, like, my expectation for them in a preseason game coming playing late at night in Seattle, whatever. I'm not judging them. But Seattle, if you just watch their intensity, their physicality, they clearly, a lot of people think, had a really good draft. I thought they had a good draft last year. Like, they could be a problem. And I said this when we talked about some of the division winners. Like, I like the Packers. I love the Texans. I think there's value in the Denver Broncos. I think at this point in time, it's either going to be Denver, obviously, or just Kansas City's going to win it for an 8th straight year. But like, of all the teams that had like kind of flyer odds, I thought Seattle was like, we know their coach is really good, right? Mike McDonald is one of, if not the best defensive mind in the NFL. They have drafted really well on that side of the ball the last couple of years, have a lot of young pieces. They're going to fit his scheme. Sam Darnold knows Kubiak because they work together in San Francisco. Like, that scheme works, and they got some pieces on offense. They won 10 games last year. It's not like, well, it's like they won 6. Like, they won 10 games last year, 4 more than the 49ers. I think that is a really, really tough spot for the 49ers week 1. Like, I think if Seattle's going to be the real deal, I think they, especially with the 49ers as banged up as they are, that's a really, really tough spot. So yeah, NFC West, kind of interested in that one. Can I tell you about my friends at Mando? Here's the thing. Summer is upon us. Where I live, I think it's 110 degrees today, and I'm a sweater, and I don't like smelling. So the key with Mando and their deodorant, it has sweat control. So not only does it block the odor all day, but it controls my sweat. I don't like to just be soaked if I'm just walking outside to grab something out of my car. And here's the thing. It was created by a doctor who saw firsthand how normal BO was being misdiagnosed and mistreated. So all the products, they're baking soda free, and you can choose from a variety of fresh scents like bourbon leather, Clover Woods, Mount Fuji is the one I use, or just the go-to Pro Sport. Want to try America's #1 whole body deodorant formula right now? You can find them in Walmart, Target, and other retailers around the country. Mando Starter Pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid starter deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like Mini Mando body wash or deodorant wipes, love those, and free shipping. As a special offer for listeners, new customers get 20% off site-wide with our exclusive code. Use the code JOHN, that's JOHN, at shopmando.com. That's shopmando.com for 20% off site-wide plus free shipping. shopmando.com. Please support our show. Tell them we sent you. Mando's got you covered. Protect your pits, baby. Smell great doing it. Ashton Jeanty, one of Frank Gore's, he had a lot of great characteristics. I mean, he was just a very, very good all-around player, and he's going to be in the Hall of Fame one day. But, like, part of the reason he played for, like, 30 seasons in the NFL is Frank Gore never wasted hits, right? If he was in the open field and he could just get to your corner, your left or right shoulder, and just kind of avoid a big hit, he'd do it. If he'd get out of bounds, he'd do it. He just wasn't, like, trying to run over everybody. And Ashton Jeanty's built like a little tank, and listen, he's really, really talented. But he had 2 plays yesterday One where he took on a linebacker just in the open field. And it's like, and this is a backup linebacker, but still, you're not going to have a long NFL career. And I would imagine Pete Carroll, and listen, I'm all for, like, I want tough guys. No one questions your toughness, Ashton, but I can't have you trying to run over linebackers in the preseason when we got 17 games. This is not the Mountain West. You're not taking on New Mexico or Fresno State. You're not taking on a bunch of guys that are going to be farmers and insurance salesmen. As a lot of you guys forwarded me the Jake Fromm picture of, he's literally selling insurance now, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, he's gonna make a ton in Georgia, former Georgia quarterback. But we've invested in you to be a star in this league. Watch some Barry Sanders highlights. Right, he was avoiding hits. So to be a healthy player, to be a successful player, you got to play smart. And no one, I totally understand, like, trying to prove as a young player to your teammates, to your coaches, like, I'm a tough SOB. Like, we got to be careful, because he gets this hit and he immediately goes to the tent. Now he comes back, but it's like, you are too important. If we're going to be a team that's on the rise, not even this year, but over the course of the next 3 or 4 years, you're going to be one of our most important players. I was thinking about this because it happens in college football a lot. You can get by in college football sometimes with multiple quarterbacks. I mean, the Florida Tebow's rookie year won the Super, or well, not the Super Bowl, the national championship with multiple quarterbacks, Chris Leak and Tim Tebow. It happens sometimes. Now, typically one guy separates from the other, but in the NFL, if you do not know who your starting quarterback is in the middle to late August, you're just not. I can't take you seriously. Like the Browns, most people don't take them that seriously. We don't think the Browns are going to be that good, and rightfully so. Flacco, Kenny Pickett, obviously Dylan Gabriel and Shador, like, they're all going to play. In what order, at what time, no one knows. But I'll promise you this: maybe they cut Kenny Pickett to go with Flacco, or maybe they cut Flacco to go with Kenny Pickett. I would imagine Flacco ends up starting, but Dylan Gabriel and Shador Sanders are starting games. I would bet 4 figures on that immediately. How many starts compared to the two of them? I don't know. But Dylan Gabriel and Shador Sanders will both start games this year for the Cleveland Browns. Bad teams, that happens, right? Even I'll give Brian Daboll credit. Like, he just nips in the bud right away. Russell's our starter. And they said this, way back 4 months ago when they were doing spring ball. The Colts, like, this is why I'm out on them. It's like, we'll know who the quarterback is soon. That's what Shane Steichen keeps saying. Like, if you don't have your quarterback picked at this point in time, like, I just can't take you seriously as a playoff contender. Even if I do like your roster and think you got a good coach and think you got, a well-run schematic advantage. Like, Lou Amaruno, good coach. If you got some defensive players, I bet Colts are way better on defense. I think Shane Steichen's a good coach. But if you don't know who your quarterback is on August 17th, like, I'm kind of out on your franchise. And one thing's clear: Howie Roseman just loves doing trades. I mean, the guy just loves making trades. And he said to Will and Taylor on Bustin' with the Boys last week, it's funny, Bob Lang, the PR guy I've known forever with 49ers, I was like, Howie said he'll come on my podcast in the spring. He's like, oh, yeah, we're really busy. And I guess I could go. I could go to Philly. I've just known the guy for 15 years. These guys, went on Pardon My Take, went on Bustin' with the Boys. They did go out to NovaCare. I wanted to do a Zoom, so advantage them. Maybe I should, next year I'll have to go to NovaCare to get that in-person interview. But Howie basically said, one thing, my biggest regret as a general manager was what everyone talks about: passing on a guy that's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer one day in Justin Jefferson, one of the more talented players that we've seen in the NFL in recent memory, right? And he took Jalen Reagor, and that's my mom can see that's a fuck up. It's not like he's acknowledging anything that we already don't know. But he also said that, like, sometimes you just don't need to overthink this and just take good players from the best teams. Like, and that's really what the Eagles, and even he mentioned this, like, maybe we don't go to 2 Super Bowls in the last 3 years if we don't have that, historic screw up. And I mean, it was because of that draft, and, Rick Spielman and Mike Zimmer were on Zoom, and we saw that clip of them high-fiving. They couldn't believe it. But John Metchie, I saw today, who they just traded for with the Houston Texans. They gave up a backup tight end, and they gave a fifth. The Texans gave a fifth, and the Eagles gave a sixth. I mean, the draft picks are just late picks. Metchie was a guy that played at Alabama, that hurt his knee, was there with Jamison Williams. I mean, it looked like they were going to win the national championship. Then both those guys got hurt. When they replayed Georgia, they lost because they didn't have any wide receivers. But I would say his career is never really got on track, and this will now be the ninth player from Alabama that will be on the Eagles. And I do think they believe they have an advantage with these guys getting them around their crew. And what have they done? They've littered their roster with guys from Nick Saban and Kirby Smart, which essentially are the same guy because Kirby Smart is just the mentee to Nick Saban. And I listen, he likes value. He sees a guy that was drafted really high. Clearly, Metchie was not going to work in with the Houston Texans for whatever reason, but I feel like how he's already made multiple trades this preseason, and it wouldn't shock me at all if over the next couple weeks that he makes another trade. So, yeah, I mean, speaking of the Texans, and this is one area I saw C.J. Stroud. They joint practice with the Panthers, and he's known Bryce because they both are from Southern California. I'm actually sitting probably not too far away from where they grew up. And CJ is just pretty high level guy, super just impressive guy whenever he talks. And it really got me thinking is like one area that I might have screwed up when it came to Bryce. And I would say especially any quarterback that played, like say what you want about Tua, he's got some limitations physically, but like he's pretty solid and mentally he's pretty tough, right? And clearly Bryce Young, sometimes I try to quantify. It's like, well, he's way too small. And listen, he's not very big. I think he's one of the smallest quarterbacks we'll ever see in NFL history, right? And definitely when he first got drafted and he played in a preseason game as a rookie, you're like, this guy looks tiny. But you can't underestimate at quarterback the importance of all the stuff that doesn't get all the intangible stuff, all the unquantifiable stuff, how tough you are, how mentally tough you are, how smart you are, how unfazed you'll be by adversity, or how well that you can handle the tough times. And if you've played for Nick Saban, like you've been getting MF from the moment you step on campus. And I was talking to someone about the Panthers, and they're like, actually, I think their line of scrimmage on both sides are pretty good. And if offensively, some of their weapons, they draft a guy in the top 10 at wide receiver, if they can be pretty good. But like Bryce has looked really, really good this preseason. And clearly, the way everything happened last year, that he couldn't have been much worse to start the season, this is why, and we talked about this last week with Jason Light, talking about like we don't draft douchebags and assholes. And I think on the other side, it's why you emphasize character and intangibles because this stuff's really, really hard. And playing quarterback in the NFL is extremely difficult, even if you are talented. So mentally, how tough you are, how smart you are, how willing you are to grind, that helps separate guys. Because a lot of people, like in any line of work or any walk of life, the easiest thing always is to tap out, is to quit, is to make an excuse. I'm just not good enough. I saw Tom Brady talk about this with Greg Olson. He's like, so many people I played with or played against it was so easy to be like, didn't have it today. Yeah, just not feeling it this week. It's like, what? Like that you can, it's so easy to get a negative mindset for all of us. I don't care what you're doing. And to go down that rabbit hole and to make an excuse. And especially for for Bryce. He could have been like, well, I'm just with a shitty organization. They put me in a bad spot. It's not all my fault. Instead, it just felt like kind of kept his mouth shut, went to work, and then bounced back. And while I think there's like a legit chance if you told me Seattle wins the NFC West, I would not be shocked at all. I don't think the Carolina Panthers can win the division. But if you told me like heading into December, they're like in the wild card discussion, I think that's very, very possible. Now, I think if you had a redo and you gave the opportunity to every general manager in the NFL, would you take C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young? You would take C.J. Stroud. But I do think there's a chance within the next year or two, we look back and go, you know what? Bryce Young's a solid player. Well, no shit. We saw him at Alabama play at a really high level. We knew the competition or the competitor was in him. We knew he was tough. I remember watching him against that Georgia team that had 100 guys playing the NFL. Him just getting peppered, mollywopped like every other play with Metchie and Jamison Williams injured and just kept getting up and kept swinging. I'm like, God, I like this guy. And I think it's why a lot of NFL people will drawn to him, even though he doesn't check a lot of boxes. I mean, he's 5'9", a buck 85. But the intangibles with him are going to be the reason, the guy has success if they have a good year. And honestly, I could see the Panthers just being a little sneaky this year.